it's Depraved Darling, and I'm back with another video. That was my attempt to be lighthearted because the topics of this video are extremely disturbing. This video is much different than the others I have done before because it is about real people that I have found on the internet. Now, full disclaimer, this is not intended to be a cancellation video, but more of an exploration of a rather disturbing phenomenon. So, without further ado, let's begin. Roleplay, defined as to act out the role of or to represent an action, is an extremely popular thing amongst teenagers. Some may say that it is even part of the teenage experience. Some role-playing is innocent and it involves unique storytelling, for example, Dungeons & Dragons. Then there are chat rooms I'm sure you've heard of, like Kick, Amino, and Wattpad, where things get a little heated. However, some people develop paraphilias, which are defined as unusual fantasies, urges, or behaviors that are recurrent and sexually arousing. In fetishism, inanimate objects, example shoes, are the person's sexual preference and means of sexual arousal. The most important things when engaging with fetishes is the topic of consent. Consent is defined as giving assent or approval or agree, and more specifically in this context, to make a mutual, voluntary, informed decision between clear-minded, of-age participants before any and every sexual act. Now, whilst on X, which I will refer to as Twitter because X sounds ugly, I come across these self-proclaimed concept writers. Rather than following conventional narratives or character arcs, conceptual authors investigate the complex link between language and concepts. They push the boundaries of language through linguistic experimentation, enabling readers to actively engage and interpret underlying meanings. This method reimagines the author-reader relationship, enabling readers to become participants in defining the text's importance. Conceptual writers emphasizes ambiguity, intertextuality, and unorthodox forms, arousing intellectual interest in questioning accepted literary standards. It blurs the line between writer and reader, allowing a transformational reading experience focused on investigation, interpretation, and the subtle intricacies of language and ideas. So, what would you expect amongst these writers is an intellectual exchange between reader and author. And what do we find instead? Well, let's see. Our first suspect is Kinder GF, a 20-year-old who has snuff victim in her bio, because that's cutesy, right? Anyways, she has accumulated a generous 2,000 followers and says MDNI in her bio, which stands for Minors Don't Interact. But isn't your account open to the public? Right, okay. Claims that this is all fake and merely a concept, yet she makes no effort to provide any meaningful exchange between herself and her audience, so much so that people perceive her post as real. What story are you telling exactly? What value do your words have besides romanticizing trauma and pain and providing lust for others? All while exposing yourself to impressionable minors? Next suspect is Girlfriend. She is a 19-year-old with another MDNI, Minors Do Not Interact, in her bio, but once again, she is public. In her bio is dumb little kiddo, and first of all, you are not a child. Secondly, it is an obvious ploy to cling to your youth and infantilize yourself, but I digress. Let's view one of her posts. I'm sorry, but what is so hee about this, you dumb bitch? How is it that you're going to roleplay as a child while being an adult, in addition to placing that child in a position where they are being brutally assaulted and add a dumb little emoticon and attempt to be cute? Once again, where's the story? Where's the intellectualism? This part of the video is going to be dedicated to the more high-profile suspects, the ones who are more sophisticated in their writing, and those who choose to warn the general public of both their paraphilias and personality disorders that contribute to their behavior. Majority claim to have ASPD and NPD, that is antisocial personality disorder, also known as sociopathy and psychopathy, and narcissistic personality disorder. First up, we have Canine Claus. He is 21 years old and, of course, has minors do not interact in his bio. Recently, he has reposted a thread of his concepts. Oh, and lo and behold, despite having minors do not interact, one of his concepts is about a father taking advantage of his daughter. Next up, we have Fragile Scared, a 23-year-old with minors don't interact. Well, at least the suspect acknowledges that she is in fact perverse and strange. Well, let's look at some posts. Once again, this goes far beyond a healthy fetish in that there is a clear imbalance and no consent whatsoever. Children cannot consent, dead people cannot consent, and using terminology such as victim implies that a person is harmed, injured, or killed as a result of a crime, accident, or other event or action. Oh, and let's examine the example. Victims of domestic violence. But you already knew that, didn't you, Miss Romanticizer? The next suspect is jailbait daughter, which means a girl under the age of consent with whom sexual intercourse is unlawful and constitute as statutory. She is also 23 years old and, of course, has minors do not interact in her bio. Let's look at some of her posts. While it's quite obvious that these individuals are promoting abuse and criminal activity, it is one thing to talk about your traumatic experiences and use writing as a therapeutic outlet. However, none of these individuals show such reflection. From their usernames romanticizing popular pedophilic slang to the customized cutesy emojis after every poorly curated sentence, they often claim that they do not want minors interacting with them and yet don't bother to private their accounts to prevent thousands of people being exposed to their behavior. How can you say minors don't interact when in fact you are placing minors in a sexual situation? It is hypocritical and disgusting. Now you may be wondering how I was able to find all of these people, even the smaller accounts. Well, it's quite simple. They infiltrate the app in many different spaces. If you follow a horror account, or perhaps an art account, the next thing you know, one of these concepts are being reposted by them. You can click on their repost and followings and go through multiple accounts with similar themes. However, some have the courtesy to remain on private. There is nothing wrong with having kinks, but there is something very wrong with promoting the abuse of children, dead bodies, animals, and even other adults who do not and cannot consent. You can claim it's fictitious all you want, however, you will remain on the watch list. Until next time.